White House know, and when did they know it? About that failed $500 million solar flameout loan. Reports that Solyndra subcontractors are saying most industry insiders knew of Solyndra's business model was no good, it was unworkable, and that if the Obama administration did any kind of real due diligence, probably wouldn't have put a dime of taxpayer money at risk with that solar company. So why weren't the loans cut off? Joining me now is Texas Republican Congressman Michael Burgess, a member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, which held hearings on the Solyndra debacle today. Well, let me just ask you the question I asked in general. What did the White House know, and when did they know it, about how bad Solyndra was?
Well, that's been the question that when we're trying to get the answer. The hearing was yesterday. We had ample opportunity earlier in the year to have this hearing. Unfortunately, the White House would not provide documents. The Office of Management of the Budget would not show up for the hearing. So ultimately it led to a subpoena in the middle of July. My only regret is we should have done it earlier because, as you know, the other part of the story is in the bankruptcy court, apparently the taxpayers' claim is subordinate to the claim of some venture capitalists. Yeah. I think if we'd acted earlier, we might have protected the taxpayer a little bit better.
By the way, is that, for those who don't know, and that includes me, by the way, is that the general rule that if the government and a private donor are both investors, the private side gets paid off before taxpayer? Or is that a really special provision, something new?
Well, it was new to us, obviously, and in fact, the statute under the Energy Policy Act of 2005 that allows the loan guarantees in the first place specifically prohibits this type of activity. That is a question that is yet to be unwound, and there may yet be some more protection for the taxpayer. But again, it's a shame that the Office of Management of the Budget was reluctant to come into the committee, required to get the documents, and they ultimately came in yesterday. We'll hear from the CEO and the CFO of the company next week.
Okay. And by the way, they did have something scheduled, if I'm not mistaken, for today, and bowed out of that, right?
Well, because only one of the two could arrive, okay. And it seemed not correct to do two separate hearings, one for each one.
Okay. Well, let me just ask you about Mr. Kaiser. This is a guy who does some fundraising, some bundling for the president, and he's been taking some trips to the White House. Can you imagine if you know, some of these contractors that work for the government that during the Bush administration, one of these guys was running a bad company and he kept taking trips to the White House? How many times would those records be subpoenaed? How many people would be put on the witness stand to find out exactly what those people said to the president or the president's assistants about their loans? Are you going to try to find out whether this guy was trying to get special provisions for Solyndra that other companies didn't get?
Well, that's part of the story that still needs to come to light. Our purpose in the hearing yesterday was simply to bring the agencies in, the Department of Energy, Office of Management of the Budget, see if their proper procedures were followed, looking at the email evidence and talking to the two individuals, Mr. Silver and Jeffrey Zients. It does not look like proper procedures were followed, and there's more questions, obviously, that have come up as a result of their testimony. The other part of this is, of course, the interposition of the story about the gentleman who made all the trips to the White House and the bundler, but that was not the purpose of our hearing yesterday.
Well, are you going to have separate hearings on that? And yes. By the way, is there more than one committee investigating now, or is it just the Energy Committee?
Well, it is right now, as far as I know, it is just oversight and investigations on energy and commerce, but the Inspector General of the Department of Treasury and the FBI raided the Solyndra headquarters and took a bunch of their documentary evidence as well. So it's rapidly ballooned bigger story than just simply is the proper loan procedure followed at Office of Management of the Budget. But clearly there was pressure. You look at those emails, and these are career staffers in the departments, and they were using words like, "Don't let them jam us again. We feel like we're in a pressure cooker." They really felt under the gun from the White House and from the Office of Management of the Budget itself to get this thing done.
Well, and of course, all the talk about unwinding the West Wing. We heard that from an assistant vice president. However they were wound up within Solyndra, we're not exactly sure. But final question, we don't want to ruin a case that's being built by the FBI, but do we know anything about whether they are only investigating Solyndra and whether or not that company was involved in some kind of criminal activity, or whether they're also investigating whether there was something done by government officials that was incorrect or questionable or perhaps illegal?
Obviously, I cannot speak for the Department of Justice. At the committee level, I do know there is enormous concern because there is still a lot of stimulus money that has to be dispersed by the Department of Energy by September 30th of this year. And if they made this kind of a mess under those time constraints, if they're hurrying to get money out the door before the program ends, heaven help us. And so we do need to get on top of it very quickly.
Well, they are. By the way, it's $15 billion more that's got to be spent before the end of this month. So they're reaching in and pulling out the wads of 100 bills quite frequently. Good to see you, Congressman. Michael Burgess from Texas, who's looking into all this. Please come back and see us again.
Anytime, David. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So.